So as I mentioned, throughout this process, we've taken a look at efficiencies within the branch office. This company has invested a ton of time and money and resources recent years in guarding efficiencies, increasing the efficiencies out in the field, IG, vision, mobile, but we've done nothing to support and change the way we do business within the office. What you're going to see today is the efficiency toolbox. What is it? It's technology integration, enhanced communication, and turnover investigation. We're going to look at the entire life cycle of an employee with Securitas, from hiring and recruiting, through how we communicate with them when they are in the field for us, to what we do when turnover does occur. What we found is a staggering number, and we'll quantify that later, but it's literally thousands of hours per year in this region that we're investing in inefficient processes. I'm going to turn it over at this point to Melissa for the first tool in the toolbox.
All right, well, let's talk about recruiting and hiring efficiencies. How many of us are confident that the efficiencies in our branch for recruiting and hiring are 80% effective? Nice, I see we have one. That's impressive. Well, as Mark had mentioned, we've done a great job with embracing technology out in the fields, giving the officers the tools to enhance their jobs, the communications with our customers. But we really haven't embraced that in the branch offices. We haven't given our teams the tools to help us eliminate wasted time and resource. So let's talk about our current process, our current status. Right now we have our recruiting and HR departments spending hours of resource, making phone calls, leaving messages, waiting to hear back from candidates, who knows when, right? How effective is that? The new status quo, leveraging technology, giving our branch offices the ability to reach hundreds in a timely fashion, possibly filtering them through automation, maybe even scheduling interviews. If we improve our processes and we can improve the time and make that more effective, don't you think our performance would rise? Let's talk about some stats. Our active openings for 2014, we had 14,000 jobs, 404 in JTS, right? So 14,404. Our applicants overall for the region, 42,848. We interviewed 22,672 of those candidates. We hired almost 8,000. So we hired a third of the applicants that we interviewed. What did we do with the other 2/3? One would say that's a waste of resource, interviewing 2/3, spending 2/3 of our time interviewing candidates that just didn't qualify for the positions we were hiring for. Is that effective? Could we improve on that? How are we going to get there? So categorized hiring. If we could categorize through levels 1 through 5 and create a bucket list, if you will, in regards to the applicants and where they best fit with the current job openings, we established and identified the competencies it took for these jobs that we're hiring for, and we created success profiles for the recruiters to hire based on. And then we survey and filtered based off of those success profiles. I think we could possibly save some time and efficiency. What if we automated that process? What if we leveraged technology? Currently, we utilize HMS. And HMS, it's an okay system. I think it's kind of cumbersome. Employee relations, we spoke to WOC a lot. And employee relations, they're back and forth. Yeah, we think it's a great idea, but we're a conservative company. We're not there yet. We're not willing to embrace that just yet. Well, if we improved our hiring filters through HMS or other technologies, we could improve on these efficiencies. We would be able to get these applicants in front of recruiting and not waste the time trying to categorize them based off of their skill sets that they have. Behavioral or personality. Certifications, they come with those. automated our interview scheduling system? What if we gave the branch office a cloud-based system that allowed them, based off the qualifications of these candidates, the ability to share their calendars? And that interview then would just populate when they're available to come in and interview. Couldn't that save some time? Eliminate wasted phone calls, waiting for messages, chasing our candidate? So let's talk about what it could save. If we put all the pieces together. So we averaged that we wasted about 220 hours per week throughout the region in our area offices. So 220 hours a week we spent on the phones, making phone calls that didn't really qualify a candidate. 11,500 hours per year in the region. That's 5.5 positions that basically showed up so they just didn't get fined. And not because they weren't working hard, they were just doing what they were trained to do, right? So what if we eliminated that waste and increased our productivity through sorting, labeling, prioritizing, and integrating technologies? Don't you think we could leverage our costs and improve overall efficiency? Don't you think, Doug?
I sure do. Thanks, Melissa. So the next thing we want to talk about in our toolbox is probably a term that you've heard a lot that you're pretty familiar with. That's turnover. When you see that word, how does that make you feel? Does it make you smile? It kind of makes me feel like, let's stop the bleeding, right? So definitely we want to talk about some things that will help us stop the bleeding, but also to look at it in a different perspective, that maybe there's some opportunity for us as branch managers within this. So let's start off by looking at what are some of the things that, some of the negative effects of turnover. First off is branch efficiencies, right? So if we're hiring 5 or 6 or 7 people a year to fill the same post, that's a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted effort. There's a lot of money that goes into that, and obviously it's tying up our teams to do what we hoped we would have done the first time. Secondly is client satisfaction. Consistently, when you go to a proposal meeting with a prospective client, what do they want to talk about? This is one of the first questions I get asked, I know that, is what are you going to do to retain your officers? How are you going to control your turnover? As a matter of fact, it's a lot of times why they're out to bid, right? Because they're tired of having open posts. This is pretty important to our clients. Third is the financial impact, and a couple of slides will really get into this of what really is the cost of turning people over, but it has a huge negative effect on us. Lastly is officer performance and satisfaction. I think it's pretty clear that an officer that's been in the job for 12 months is more effective than somebody that's a month into the job, right? So performance is a major detriment when you have turnover. And also satisfaction. You have officers that are constantly being asked to work outside of their master schedule. They're being asked to work mandatory overtime all the time. They get unhappy. So then they turn over. So it becomes a snowball effect. Our current program right now, some surveys that we sent out to all of you, 85% of you said that turnover was a major issue in your branch, right? Everybody agree with that? Here's the problem. 75% of you also responded that there's no plan, no program today to combat turnover. And I understand that because we haven't been given tools and resources to do that. So that's the conversation we want to start today. This disconnect is something that we need to address. $6.6 million going out the window. That's where we are today with turnover. So now let's talk about the potential of what we could do by reducing turnover. Think of it this way. Every time you can prevent an officer from leaving the company, you're saving your branch $1,000. There's a lot to go into that. Uniforms, training, overtime, efficiencies. Think of it this way. A 10% reduction will reduce advertising, recruiting, hiring, and training by 10%. Or think of it this way. It'll reduce your turnover-driven overtime by 10%. To me, that's huge. A 10% reduction will save the region $660,000, or on average about $11,000 for each branch. But there are some challenges. There's some things that don't make this easy. One, SAFES really doesn't give us the detail to do anything about turnover. Two, as branch managers, we need to be inspired by the potential that there is out there. If we can address this and focus on it, what we can make happen. And third, the attitude at all levels that we cannot control turnover. We all know it, we all hear it, hey, it's a high turnover industry. We all like to look on the internet and see that the industry average is 100 to 400%, and heck, I'm only 75, so I'm doing pretty good, right? But there's still potential there. So what do we do? I mean, what's the answer? Where do we go from here? I can tell you that there's several people in the room, that 25% that are doing something with it. There's kind of a common theme of what they do. If you take your turnover people, so take all the people that turned over, you can put in a lot of sorting filters there. What account do they work at? Are they full-time or part-time? Do they work third shift, first shift? What are those things that are important to you? And then investigate each and every turnover. Now, we have a mechanism in place today. It's called an exit interview. I personally don't find a lot of results from that, so we have to take another step beyond that, to talk to that person directly, or to talk to their coworkers, or talk to their supervisor, to really try to find out. The days are gone when we can just put in there the term code that they left for another job. That doesn't help us, does it? The question is what? Why were they looking for another job, right? So we need to get it down to a root cause. Here's an example. In the left column, you have the officer's name. The second column, you have the account that they work at. The third column is the critical piece of this, and that is the root cause that we were able to identify for each one of those people leaving the company. And then the far right column is the action plan. I went ahead and highlighted the things that have a common theme, and that's really what you're looking for, is a trend, or something that is consistently happening. Let me back up a little bit and say, you really need to do this trend for 12 months. To really see the picture, at least 12 months. So what you see is a lot of counseling corrective action. You see people disqualified that didn't make it through the training process. In short, the problem definition is we had underqualified officers. Plain and simple, we had people that didn't meet our standards or didn't meet the client's standards. So what is the solution? I went and sat down with the client. I shared this spreadsheet. I shared some wage surveys that Carol pulled for me. And we talked about what is a solution collectively. In the end, they agreed to let me start our officers at $1 higher than what they had in the past, right? Tell you a story about this. I've been having that same conversation with that client for 2 years, and nothing ever happened. But once you're able to give them data, then they understand and they get it. I'll give you another example. This is another account. What we actually found was 2 different problem definitions in here, but I want to focus on one, which is highlighted in the orange. All 4 of these turnovers were a direct result of my supervisor not being as good as he needed to be. So the problem definition is that he wasn't doing well. 2 choices. You can either fix him or move him. We tried to fix him, didn't work, so we moved him. And there's a host of other things that can happen that can come out of here. So here's some other benefits. Bumped the wrong button. Client satisfaction, as we talked earlier, is huge. Second one is gaining real data to support real change. Rate changes, as we discussed. You identify enhanced training opportunities, supervisor issues, as we discussed, better candidate placement that Mark addressed here a little bit ago, and client-driven issues. A lot of times there's environmental issues out there that we can affect if we have the data. In the end, we all know that turnover and unbilled are part of this business, but that's not a good reason to accept it. We really need to control what we can control. Thank you.
You don't think so? All right, moving right along to our next tool. And obviously a lot of us know that communication and the speed of communication can sometimes be a great asset and sometimes be a great hurdle. And this next section, this next tool focuses on mass communication, whether it be from a small group to a large group of officers within our branches. And our team has nicknamed this SUSA Alerts. So communication, we spend thousands of hours every week communicating branch needs into the field. And whether that's something simple as we have a call off to there's a major policy change. We spend thousands of hours at a region level especially in inefficient time with how we communicate out to the field. And so we want to give you a tool that will help address that, make it more efficient, timely, and in a cost-effective way. So SUSE Alerts, it's a couple things. One, it's mass communication with the click of a button. No longer the picking up the phone, spending hours and hours using the telephone, but we have a way that's very simple to use, very economical, that will help us fill open shifts, call-offs, vacations. I mean, how many of you in here do not have one of these issues on a weekly basis? Nobody. All of us do. Policy change. Frequently, we see different changes come up, and we need to respond quickly. And so SUSE Alerts is a program and a system that we found that will do that in a very quick way. How? Through text and voice messages. From the texting side, we wanted to have a platform where officers enroll. We're able to text a message out rather than spending a dozen hours to fill one or two call-offs. It goes out to all of our pool, whether it be the MSO, flex pool, whatever you call it in your branch. We wanted to dial that down to where click of a button, it's done. I don't want to use a text. I want this to be more personal with a voice message. Sure. One call, it's done. And that's what SUSE Alerts is all about. So we did a beta test in a couple different cities. One of them was in my hometown. 90 officers were encouraged to opt in a 2-day period. During those 2 days, we split it up between several of us. I called a third, 2 others called the other two-thirds. 77 officers opted in. We had officers opt in that I didn't even speak to. I just left a message on the phone of what the program was, how to opt in, and they did it on their own. It's that simple. The results of what we found, I believe, are very staggering, as well as our group. Over several weeks, what we found is that for each scheduler, they were able to save 10 hours plus per week just simply by using the system. Click of a button, send it off. So what platform did we use? We used, this is just a screenshot here, but the platform we decided to use was very simple, user-friendly. We didn't want another system that was very difficult and it took hours and hours to figure out how to use. This was just very intuitive software that makes it very easy. It gives customizable reporting, and it's a great back end that we don't have to support. Let other people do that. We want to focus on being efficient with our time. So what we did is we decided this needs to be implemented in 3 stages. We were able to beta test stage 1. And stage 1, phase 1, was geared towards officers that were at 32 hours or less, flex officers, part-time, and that's who our target was for phase 1. And that's where we got the numbers from and the savings. We filled, right now we're even doing one for the circus, for WWE, concerts, call-offs, you name it, we use this system. A text goes out, our scheduler takes a few seconds, hits the button, and boom. 660 hours per week as a region we would save. I mean, you roll that up, 34,000 hours a year annually by simply adopting how we, instead of calling, that we use a click of a button. I'm all in, and so is our group. We believe this will be very valuable for the entire team. Phase 2 is something that we're currently working on and getting some approval through legal, but this is branch communication alerts. And the branch communication alerts are geared more to everyone. And this is using both the text and the voice options. And with this style here is geared more for, when did W-2s, when do they get out? Wouldn't you rather, instead of making dozens of calls, send out a voice message to everyone? W-2s will be delivered by this date. It's a little bit more personal in some ways, and in other ways, how much faster is that? Phase 2 and Phase 3, we haven't done any studies on how many hours, how much time savings there will be. Just Phase 1 is 34,000 hours annually. So we can imagine what Phase 2 and Phase 3 will help out with as well. So also in Phase 2, it's geared to, I know I would have loved to have it, I know many of us in here, when we had one simple change about 2 months ago. We were asked to extend the healthcare enrollment by 1 week. How many dozens of hours and heartaches and headaches and all the other aches would that have saved if we were able to just, again, push a button, it goes out to everyone, the message out, it's done. This is the kind of alert that we're talking about. Phase 3 is geared more to SUSE, we call it SUSE applicant alerts. Again, Melissa alluded to this, to a piece of it, but the SUSE applicant alerts, this will help speed our recruiting time, whether it's open house, whether it's, hey, we're going to just set this day aside for interviews. If you want to be interviewed, come in this day. I mean, it can help out a lot instead of, again, spending hours and hours on the phone inefficiently. So that brings us to the conclusion of SUSE alerts. How does it make us more efficient? By helping us manage our resources in a much better way. Wouldn't you like to have 500 hours given back to your personal scheduler, 500 hours a year, that they could reappropriate to helping safes and billing accuracy be better? Wouldn't you love to have 500 hours extra added to each and every scheduler you have to reduce your unbilled and overtime? How much more efficient and faster would they be by having a simple tool like SUSE alerts? How about for the HR department? We love our HR guys. We need them. Except for us, the guy that sits over here. I don't know about him. But everybody else, the HR guys, we need them. And why do we need them? Because they help protect us. But again, how much time is spent calling people, oh, do you have the documentation? Part of the platform we want to use has customizable reports that gives the documentation that's needed of how many shifts have you not replied to? How many shifts have you refused and rejected? How valuable is that information when it comes to the terms and the other pieces that are needed? Obviously, greater communication, as well as morale. One of the things that we believe will happen with this is all the accounts that are 168 and less, don't have a site lead, don't have a site supervisor. How often do they get skipped on the messages of promotion possibilities? How often are they not included with whatever's going on with the entire branch? How much more would they feel included? How much more of a vision would they get when they can get the alerts of there's an open post? It's not just a post, but it's a position for you to advance into that you can apply for. Different offerings that we maybe have with different benefits or different pieces. Again, right now we don't have the time, but with this program, SUSE Alerts, we would. So in short, increased branch support team effectiveness is our goal, and that's the goal of one of the tools we have. And now on to our next piece of efficiency.
Thank you. So where do we go from here? Is this on? Okay. Where do we go from here? We started at the front end of the life cycle, hiring, recruiting, screening, trying to make our recruiters more effective, more efficient, better use of their time. Doug talked about turnover, end of life cycle for the employee. What do we do to curb that problem? Mass communication, how we're working with the officers, communicating with our staff while they're working for us. The next step, we were going to take a look at the structure of scheduling and the branch manager. And a lot of you out here, I appreciate it, you responded to the surveys. What we found is that based on what we got back, there's not a structural problem. We've got the right people. We've got similar results from a schedule that shares a portfolio to one that has their own. But what we found is that there's a problem with the process of scheduling, and maybe more importantly, the platform that we've provided them to schedule. Currently, what's it look like? Right? You walk by a scheduler's office, this is what we see. What's that quantify to? Based on what we received back, 6,200 hours per week of permanent business per scheduler in this region. That says nothing for movie screenings, national temp, circuses, state fairs, the iPhone launch that we all lived through here this fall. 6,200 hours a week for one person to manage. On average, 200 to 250 security officers. For me, you throw that on a job description, say, hey, I want you to be a scheduler, manage 6,200 hours per week, 250 people, they're all yours. No thanks. I mean, this is a daunting task that we're putting out in front of our support staff. Ultimately, it's leading to 20 to 30 hours per week, simply dialing for dollars. Now, we've addressed part of this through David's piece and his presentation on SUSE alerts, but where do we go from there? How do we take this to the next level and really empower them with the tools to become truly much more effective and efficient day in and day out? As a result of what we're doing right now, I'm going to step it back. We're missing opportunity. We're missing opportunity first and foremost to leverage our entire database of employees. Like David mentioned, we've got part-time employees out there who, let's be honest, we make 5 or 6 phone calls in a tough bind. Who do you call? You call to your go-to. Yep, I'm going to call Mark. Mark's at 40 hours. He'll take 48. Done. I can go home. Our schedulers are doing the same. How do we get our employees more actively involved in that process? The answer is technology integration. Tim's going to come up and give you a better idea of what it looks like, but I'll tell you what the vision is. The vision is to give our employees a chance to take an active role in scheduling. Safes, thankfully Kelly agreed, is not a great tool. Safes is a timekeeping and billing tool that we use. There's platforms out there. We're in the dark ages right now. We're using one phone. Back to that first picture, that's the difference. They get one phone and they get Safes. So we envision a platform here that's going to allow a scheduler to put out, allow an officer basically to look in at our schedules, an officer to take an active role in it. We still have final oversight. We have final approval. But it's going to free time, give our schedulers a chance to build stronger relationships with those 250 people that report to them. They can better identify talent, better position talent. Turn it over to Tim, let you know what it looks like.
Thank you, Mark. Well, one of the things we looked at right up front, we thought, what is the company doing with safes? You know, we don't want to go out here and recreate the wheel. If our IT group is working on safes to the point where we're wasting our time. But what we found out, they are working on safes. There will be some improvements coming, but not when it comes to scheduling enhancements. What is coming has to do with timekeeping and billing functions. So we had to look externally at what other options did we have out there. And we found several that would be very beneficial for us. We think in the short term anyway. We don't see them as long-term solutions. Here's a web page of one of the sites that we looked at. And what you see here is a lot of open shifts, things that are filled. What it takes is a scheduling manager, once he gets notified of an open position, it takes him 5 minutes to input the information in there. And what happens at that point in time, an email or a text gets sent out to all the people that you've got set up in the system. They can then respond back in, they can accept the shift, they can decline the shift, but they do that on their own. One of the other things Mark mentioned was they can look in on this. Our officers can look and see what shifts are available. Saves about 30 minutes on average of calling, that dialing for dollars that we've talked about. So if we're saving 25 minutes between the 5-minute setup and the 30 minutes, that's time well spent. The other nice thing about these programs is there's reminders. If you've got an officer who accepted a shift 2 days ago, and that shift is tomorrow morning, he gets an email or a text today saying, hey, you've got a shift at 8 a.m. tomorrow. None of that, oh, I didn't remember that I had accepted it 3 or 4 days ago. We did have an opportunity to beta test this in a couple markets in Omaha and Kansas City. And we had really nice results. A lot of information there. The main thing I want you to notice is the number of average hours per week saved, last column there. In Kansas City, we had 2 schedulers, and between those 2 schedulers over this 8-week period, they were saving on average 18 hours a week in just calling from the shifts that were picked up that were put into the system. In Omaha, they had even better results. They had 1 scheduler and he saved 12 hours a week on average over those same 8 weeks. So roughly, we're averaging about 10 hours a week in savings. You multiply that out from all of our schedulers all across the region, and just talk about the time into dollars, about $515,000 that we would save that way. Here's some interesting things, the comments that came from our schedulers that were working with this. I was freed up to work on future schedules, vision, and post orders. Who wouldn't like that? It was organized. It allowed me to look at all my flex officers at one time. And this one, it gave me time to look at alternative scheduling which could reduce unbilled. And that came from the scheduler. That wasn't us. This was not high level. This was our schedule wanting to reduce that unbilled overtime. So what does the future hold? What does it look like? Well, we want a web-based platform that encompasses all of these things that we've talked about today. We want all of our officers to be set up in this platform. At that point in time, their schedules, where they're trained, what they can do. Then envision this. The NCC gets a call. They've got a temp job that just came in. They input the information into the system, automatically generates the contract. They send the email out to you in the site to make sure that, one, it's the right branch, because we know we've all gotten those NCC requests, it wasn't ours. Make sure it's the right location. We accept it. Once we accept it, the system goes in and looks at all the officers who are under 40 hours, who are trained and certified for that site. They get the email or the text. They accept it. It's automatically done. No middleman is required for that piece of the process. Also, if we have a person who wants vacation, they go into the system, input it, and the people automatically go in and sign up and take their vacation. And then we talk about open posts. We're trying to fill posts, and we do not do a good job of getting out to the field and notifying everybody when we have those open posts. So this would allow them to go in and look and see what open posts are out there, what they can fill, maybe have a perfect job opportunity. And what will that do? That will make our officers happier. When we have happier officers, we reduce turnover, and ultimately that will lead to reduced needs for hiring. Go ahead and turn it back over to Mark.
Thank you. So I said earlier we'd quantify the total number. Throughout our research, throughout this process, again, technology integration, enhanced communication, turnover investigation. What did we find? Pretty conservative number though. 46,000 hours per year in this region we're investing in horribly inefficient processes. I mentioned earlier that, yeah, we probably have some support staff that are showing up so they don't get fined. It's not because of who they are or the job they're doing. I think we have good people. We aren't giving them the tools to succeed. To dial that down a little bit further, 46,000 hours, it's the equivalent of 22 full-time people in this region that their entire jobs are inefficient. All 40 hours, 52 weeks a week that they work. Break that down again, that's 2 people per area. We've got a huge inefficiency problem with our back office, our support functions. And we believe strongly it's time for us as a company to take a hard look at some tools and technology to enhance that efficiency. Thank you.